Welcome back, sports fans. In this segment, I'm going to discuss the last game the Lions played against the Falcons back in 2017 at Ford Field. At that time, the Lions were 2-0, and for those of you who remember this is going to bring up some memories for you, I'm sure. The Lions did not lead the entire game, and the game essentially came down to the last drive with the Lions 89 yards away from the go-ahead touchdown. There was roughly a minute and 39 seconds on the clock, I think it was. Matt Stafford drove the Lions all the way down to the Falcons' 1-yard line. Now, they were benefited in part by a pass interference on now current Lion Desmond Trufant, and I'll get some more on that in just a minute or so. They had 2 incomplete passes. However, on third down, Matt Stafford completed the pass to Golden Tate, and he was tackled seemingly by some people short of the goal line, but in fact, he did cross the goal line, and it took several replays, and it took me watching earlier today, because it wasn't clear-cut to me at that time, the fact that Brian Poole, in fact, had actually touched him, and then his knee landed on the ground with the ball short of the goal line. I was never sure if he crossed the goal line or if the ball was right about at the goal line, but I felt, and looking at it through biased eyes, I felt it was a touchdown. However, come to find out, it wasn't. The play was subsequently reviewed, and it was ruled that, in fact, it was not a touchdown, and that for a reason that I wasn't sure of, and I'm still not entirely sure today, as a matter of fact, there was a 10-second runoff, which ended the game because once the play had been completed, there were only 8 seconds on the clock, which disgusted me and a lot of Lions fans, and especially those who were at Ford Field on that day, I'm sure. Having done a little bit more research and having looked at this again, there is no question that it was not a touchdown. I've already stated that. I mean, clearly you can see that Golden Tate was touched by around the shoulder pads by Brian Poole, and then his knee hit the ground with the ball short of the goal line. There is one thing I've always questioned about it, though, and that is, even if he was short of the goal line, there was still time left on the clock, and I'll get to my thought in a minute on that. However, I want to read a quote that was mentioned at the time by Dean Blandino, who used to be the head of the NFL official, or the chief of the NFL officiating crew. And that is, and I quote now, he said, in reference to Golden Tate, he was short, in which he would have kept the clock running. This carries a 10-second runoff. Had the call on the field been correct initially, the clock would have run out. That's the spirit of the rule. End quote. Okay, the problem I have with that is that if the call had been correct initially, who's to say the Lions wouldn't have had enough time to have run up there, snapped the ball before time ran out? Now, they couldn't have spiked the ball because it was already 4th down. But I'm not certain with the team that close to the ball that they might not have been able to get a snap off in 7 seconds or even 7.5 seconds. So to me, even though that may have been the correct call, by virtue of them calling it a touchdown, by no means am I disputing the fact with the officials that they should not have called it a touchdown, because that's the way it looks if you look at it live. But the fact that they didn't get it right cost the Lions a chance to get the one more play that may have won them the game. And bear in mind, they never led throughout the course of the game. But who knows how that might have turned the tide and the fortunes, because now instead of being 1-3 against the Falcons, Matt Stafford would have been 2-2, and it would have been another loss for Matt Ryan against the Lions. In fact, the Lions would have now won the last 2 against the Falcons if not for that call. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, NFL and NFL Films goes into a lot more detail on this. And those were two of my sources for information in regards to this. In the next segment, I'm going to make my prediction for tomorrow's game. Stay tuned to the Detroit Lions tomorrow on Ed's Sports Channel.